Formula 1 is the pinnacle of the single-seater motorsport around the world. The most talented drivers from across the globe battle it out on some of the greatest racetracks ever built, in some of the greatest machines ever created. Fans of the sport have had to witness year-long fights between legendary drivers and teams where the championships were decided on the final day. Other times, F1 fans carried themselves through watching one team dominate from start to finish, even tuning in for races where they knew exactly who was going to win that day. Some people have called the turbo hybrid era the worst era in F1 history. They say bring back the good old days of the 2000s. But how good were they? And are we just clouded by nostalgia? Well, we're going to look back over the last 25 years of F1. And through statistics and a bit of unreliable math, we'll see just how exciting or boring each season was. We'll look at the percentage of wins and the percentage of podiums the champion got in that season, the percentage of their constructor wins, and the margin between them and second place as a percentage of their points total. Then, take the average of the four. We'll also look at the number of drivers who won a race in that given season. For more drivers, the more exciting and open the championship is. A season is more dramatic if 8 different drivers won a race, than if it was just the champion, his teammate and one other racer. The number of 1-2s between him and his teammate, and when was the championship clinched. Everybody knows the championship fight that goes down to the final day is seen as more exciting and more memorable than one that was won before the summer break. How many drivers were in the title fight on the final race day? With that, we generate an excitement score. We will see which seasons were ranked where, from last to first, with a bit of context on the drivers, teams, and what happened that season. The bigger the score, the better the season. And here is the list. Was there any point in watching a race this season? The third of Schumacher and Ferrari's 5 in a row. 11 out of the 17 races were won by Michael, tied for 4th most out of the 26. In fact, Michael Schumacher finished on the podium every single race. In an era with only 10 points for a race win, Schumacher finished 67 points ahead of teammate Rubens Barrichello. Whenever Barrichello won the Grand Prix this season, Schumacher was right behind him. He clinched the championship with 6 races to go at the French Grand Prix in July. In at number 25, only 3 drivers won a race this season: Hamilton, Rosberg and Vettel. With the Mercedes duo winning 16 out of the 19 races, this was the second season of the turbo hybrid era in which the Silver Arrows blew the competition away. If it wasn't for the fact that Rosberg won those final 3 races of the season to make the margin smaller, 2015 would have been dead last. The final season of Schumacher's dominance. It was just as dominant as the 2002 season, this time with arguably one of the best cars ever built in F1 history. Despite Michael winning 11 out of the first 12 races, Barrichello kept it closer than he did 2 years before. The only other winners came from Jarno Trulli in Monaco, when Schumacher crashed out in a collision with Montoya, who'd also win the final race in Brazil when the championship was already over. Not many people remember how boring this era of F1 was. This was a weird season. Due to the pandemic, a lot of the races had to be cancelled, along with some of the circuits having 2 race weekends. Mercedes dominated once again, but this time, teammate and closest challenger Valtteri Bottas managed to only win 2 races all year, bringing the margin percentage to 35%. This season did bring us new winners though, as Pierre Gasly and Sergio Perez won their first ever races. Still pretty forgettable. The most recent season on the books. This is one of the few seasons where the champion dominated despite any help from his teammate. Max Verstappen won 15 races in 2022, the most by a single driver ever. However, the season also had 22 races, meaning that he's still third in win percentage, behind Schumacher in 2004 and Vettel in 2013. Speaking of, I truly hated this season, and it made me actually stop watching F1 for a while. It wasn't a bad start, 5 different winners before the summer break, with the standings quite close in the era of 25 points for a win. Then, this happened. With just a few more points than 2013, Vettel had clinched the title a race earlier than 2013. He was on the podium more, and there were more Red Bull 1-2s. Somehow, it's still less dominant. In at number 19, it's a season that many people definitely forget about. Only 3 1-2 finishes for Ferrari, in a season where Barrichello didn't even manage to get a single win. Schumacher only won 9 times this season, his nearest challenger David Coulthard only winning twice. The only thing that made his season better than the one spoken about so far was the fact that there were 3 extra winners in Ralf Schumacher, Montoya and Hakkinen. Another meh season. This is one of those seasons where if it weren't for the rival team stepping up in the second half, this would have been much, much worse. Mercedes won each of the first 8 races before Verstappen, Leclerc and Vettel picked up wins in the summer. At least we started to see the emergence of a new challenger in Charles Leclerc, who grabbed 7 pole positions this year. New regulations, new engines and some of the ugliest looking cars ever. Pre-season testing showed that Mercedes were favourites to win, and boy did they not disappoint. Hamilton and Rosberg combined to win 15 out of the 19 races, with 11 of them being a 1-2 finish. A great start to the new era. The only reason why 2014 is this high is because the championship was decided on the final day, as they decided to award double points for the final race of the season, for some reason. Thank God they got rid of it for 2015. One of Mercedes' least dominant years. A 52.4 constructor win percentage is the lowest from their turbo hybrid years, and only 4 1-2 finishes for Mercedes. This is more or less down to Sebastian Vettel and Ferrari having one of the best performances in recent years and pushing the silver hours all the way. Vettel was in the lead heading out of the British Grand Prix. Then he crashed in Hockenheim. With Hakkinen and McLaren the team to beat, up stepped Michael Schumacher, looking to get his 3rd championship. McLaren had the faster car with Hakkinen and Coulthard at the wheel, which explains why Ferrari only managed to pick up 3 1-2 finishes and only 58% of the constructor wins. Most of it was due to Hakkinen either retiring from the race or finishing way outside the points. In this season, we saw Hakkinen come from 16 points down after the first 3 races, Schumacher retire from 4 races in the European stretch, then Hakkinen take the lead in the championship at Belgium, where we saw him pull off one of the greatest overtakes in F1 history. I wonder, if it weren't for this season, how many people would have stopped watching F1 altogether? After witnessing 2 of the most boring seasons ever, this year was somewhat its saviour. Nico Rosberg had to sit and watch his teammate Hamilton run away with the 2014 and 15 championships. But Nico was no slouch. Everyone remembers when they collided in Spain, which allowed a young 18-year-old to win his first ever race. But people forget that Rosberg shot into a 43-point lead heading into that race. With Lewis winning 6 out of the next 7, Rosberg hit back with 3 consecutive wins. Whilst Ricciardo stealing a win in Malaysia brought the total number of winning drivers up to 4, a win in Japan set Rosberg in such a position that he only needed 4 more second places to win his first ever F1 title. Despite Mercedes winning a staggering 90% of the races, the highest on this list, we were treated to a back and forth tussle that went into the final race day, which is why it's at number 14. How can we follow that up? Well, with the most average F1 season on this list, right in the middle at number 13. The lowest amount of wins needed for Hamilton to win a title with Mercedes at 9, an average win percentage of 45%, an average of 5 different winners, a relatively close title fight with Ferrari's Sebastian Vettel, ended with 2 races remaining. What can I say but average? The season after the nightmare before, the final season of those fabulous V10 engines, a new rule was instituted in 2005, no tyre changes. This hampered the Ferrari car as their Bridgestone tyres were just not as competitive as the longer lasting Michelins, apart from one race of course. As a result, this season was blown wide open. Well, between Renault and McLaren. And by Renault and McLaren I mean Alonso and Raikkonen. Renault, the winning constructor, didn't have a single 1-2 finish all season. There was only one from McLaren in Brazil, and of course the Ferrari 1-2 in America, which honestly doesn't count. Although Alonso was on the podium 78% of the time, Raikkonen was hot on his tail with credible performances in an unreliable McLaren. From famously storming from the back of the grid to win in Japan, to infamously destroying his tyres from the lead in Germany. 7 wins and over 100 points from both Alonso and Raikkonen. What a season. And what a way to start a new era in Formula 1. A balanced spread of wins, a close fight brought to last race, a new winner and McLaren back on top after 7 years. What more could you want? 1998. People will always remember the infamous crash to the start of the Belgian Grand Prix, then Schumacher running into Coulthard to spark this fight in the pit lane, allowing Damon Hill and Ralf Schumacher to have a 1-2 finish for Jordan. The only blemish on this sheet is that there were 9 1-2 finishes for McLaren. Oh boy, yeah, this season. Whether it's legitimate or needs an asterisk is not what it's about. There is so many places to look for excitement. Whether it's the fact that there were no 1-2 finishes for Red Bull all season, or that there were 6 different winners. Choose your pick from Perez's win in Azerbaijan, Ocon's win in Hungary, McLaren's 1-2 in Italy with Ricciardo taking top spot, and that crash between Hamilton and Verstappen, Bottas's win in Turkey, Norris coming so close to winning in Russia, or one of the most controversial races in F1 history in Abu Dhabi. Through eyesight, 2021 deserves to be higher than number 10. A new era for Formula 1 commenced in 2006. Cars were now running on a 2.4 litre V8 engine, leaving behind the screaming V10s. This season was also the last of Michael Schumacher at Ferrari after 11 years. In a title showdown with Alonso that went the distance, they traded wins from Australia all the way to Germany, before a surprise and deserved victory for Jenson Button at Hungary. Other race wins were for Massa at Turkey and Brazil, along with Fisichella winning the Malaysian Grand Prix, to get Renault's only 1-2 this season. As Alonso and Schumacher each won 7 races, along with the margin only being 13 points, this season sits perfectly at number 9. This is the last season in this list in which the championship was decided before the final race. It also features the last red stat on this list, a season where the championship table was flipped upside down. New regulations to the aero, slick tyres replacing the grooves, kinetic energy recovery systems, and a new point system. Oh yeah, and a new constructor, Brawn Grand Prix. Ross Brawn cooked up a new race-winning car with Button and Barrichello at the wheel. Only 6 wins from Button out of the 17 races to deliver a 35.3 win percentage. However, that all came in the first 7 races, along with 3 out of the 4 1-2 finishes for Brawn. The season would have been way down the list if it weren't for the FIA finding Brawn's diffuser loophole. Much to the benefit of Red Bull, Vettel, Webber, Barrichello, Hamilton and Raikkonen all picked up wins after Turkey. In fact, no driver won back-to-back races between rounds 8 and 17. It was really anyone from 6 drivers who could win on any given day. Truly memorable. Speaking of memorable seasons, I honestly thought this would be higher. Again, only 6 wins from 17 for Raikkonen. The championship went to the final race, this time with a whopping 3 drivers, all with the chance of winning. Defending champion Fernando Alonso, rookie Lewis Hamilton, and prime Kimi Raikkonen. All 3 were on 100 or more points going into Brazil, with Hamilton in first and Raikkonen way back in 3rd place, needing a miracle. At round 9 in Silverstone, Raikkonen, Hamilton, Alonso and even Felipe Massa had shed all the wins across them. But Hamilton still had a 14-point lead over Alonso because he had finished on the podium in every single race up to that point. With the absurd consistency between the 3 drivers, not one stat fell into the domination range, with a win in Brazil coupled with a 3rd place from Alonso and Hamilton in 7th. By my calculations, Raikkonen won the championship by 1 point. Hakkinen vs Irvine. Well, it should have been Hakkinen vs Schumacher part 2, but Schumacher suffered a broken leg in a crash at Silverstone. Hakkinen retired from a race 5 times in 1999 to match his 5 wins all season, a 31% win percentage. Irvine scored back-to-back wins in Austria and Germany to take the lead, before being pegged back and taking the lead once again at the penultimate race in Malaysia, 4 points ahead of Hakkinen. Then Hakkinen flipped the switch on Irvine, winning in Japan and Irvine only in 3rd, to snatch the title away from the Northern Irishman and break Ferrari hearts once again. Two years earlier, and we saw the last championship won by Williams to this day. What more can be said? A close battle that culminated on the final day showdown between the giant and the underdog. 6 different race winners, and let's not forget, Jerez qualifying, where Villeneuve, Schumacher and Heinz-Harald Frentzen all qualified with the exact same time, a 1:21.072. Still the only time that's ever happened. Oh, and one fact, Schumacher and Villeneuve, the 2 title contenders, never shared a podium, not once. A combined 12 wins and 4 extra podiums, and they never stood on the podium together at the same race. Mental. A lot of people forget about 2003, simply because it's sandwiched in between 2 of the most dominant seasons in recent history. Also like those 2 seasons, it was won by Michael Schumacher. Many people would look at this period and say, oh, Schumacher won 5 in a row, they all must be boring. No, not this one. Those who do remember 2003 will know exactly what made it special, and why this year in particular stood out from the Ferrari dominance. Well, let's look at the stats. Ferrari only won half of the races, a far cry from the 88% and 83% from 02 and 04. 6 of those went to Michael, less than half of the total he'd get the year later. A 2.1% margin, 3 drivers in contention for the title going into the last race, and 9 different race winners. The year before, it was only Michael, his brother Ralph, Rubens and David Coulthard who would win. But this year, we saw the Schumacher brothers, Barrichello, Coulthard and Montoya win races. Then we saw not 1, not 2 but 3 debut wins. Kimi Räikkönen in Malaysia, Fisichella in Brazil and a young Fernando Alonso in Hungary. A fantastic season. Coming in at number 3, we see another McLaren vs Ferrari bout. Once again we saw 3 surprise winners, and probably the greatest final lap in F1 history, with a third most 7 different winners in 2008, which came as 5 wins for Hamilton, 6 for Massa, 2 for Räikkönen and Alonso, and debut wins for Kubica, Kovalainen and Sebastian Vettel. Just 33.3% of the races were won by McLaren, the lowest of all 26. And not a single 1-2 from them either. Hamilton entered Brazil 7 points ahead of Massa, with the Brazilian on pole in his home Grand Prix. Massa led from pole throughout the whole race, despite a mix of dry and wet weather. With Massa guaranteed 10 points, all Hamilton needed to do was finish in 5th place, which is exactly what he did, overtaking Glock in the final corner of the final lap in the final race to snatch the championship at the hands of Massa and Ferrari. The best start to a Formula 1 season ever. 8 different winners, 7 coming from the first 7 races. Button, Alonso, Rosberg, Vettel, Maldonado, Webber, Hamilton, and then later on Räikkönen, only behind 2003 for having the highest number of winners. A single 1-2 from Red Bull coming in the 16th race at Korea. Just 5 wins was enough for Vettel to take home his 3rd title, 4 of them coming consecutively in the Asia stretch, overturning a 39-point deficit on championship leader Alonso, to go into the final day in Brazil leading by 13 points. It looked like he would throw away the title after spinning in the first lap and falling to his 22nd in the race, but the young German stormed back through the field to secure the title and cap off this majestic season. But as majestic as it was, like many things, there is always one that stands in its way. One year will triumph over it. One year that claims the number 1 spot on this list, and quite possibly be the greatest season in Formula 1 history. Six different championship leaders, 5 different race winners, and 4 drivers who had the chance to win a title on the final day. From Alonso to Massa, Then to Button, Webber, Hamilton and Vettel, these group of drivers went and equalled a record 10 championship lead changes in this year, tied with 1986. The McLarens of Jenson Button and Lewis Hamilton, along with Mark Webber, would take turns leading the championship going into Germany, with the standings showing Hamilton and Button having convincing leads over the rest of the field. But from after the Belgian Grand Prix, Mark Webber took over. With a few podium places added onto his 4 wins already achieved over the season, the Aussie went into the 17th race of the season, the Korean Grand Prix, in first place. After a fatal mistake by Webber, the lead was given over to Alonso, who took the lead into the final race in Abu Dhabi, 8 points ahead of Webber, 15 ahead of Vettel, and 24 ahead of Hamilton. 4 drivers in with a shout of taking the 2010 title. In the end, Hamilton only got a 2nd place, ruling him out. Webber finished in 8th, not enough to surpass Alonso, and Alonso was stuck behind the Renault of Vitaly Petrov for most of the race, leaving him on 252 points. The only way Alonso can win this championship is if Sebastian Vettel can't win the race, which is exactly what he did.